because we have business level data, we can do exactly that. You see that these large firms, many of them have been broken up from being public back in 2001. So it's mostly in the financial sector and also in the construction sector. And when we've asked questions of builders and others, I mean, clearly the financial sector was deregulated and some state-owned companies were broken up. But in the building industry, the business model seems to have changed. There's a lot more construction of housing now, which is small scale. And, you know, for various reasons, you want to subcontract and you want to keep small, and perhaps you don't pay as many taxes when you keep small. So you can get to this granularity of the discussion and therefore not jump to priors about then there must be a problem with large firms by getting the data and taking a look. Why are firms not graduating? I have my own priors on this for Uganda. There's a lot of literature that talks about the importance of governance and why you wouldn't want to get big. In that particular economy, I think there's an issue of competition, that there are some very large players that control the entire value chain in some products. And so integration of the small players with the large players may be something that competition policy wants to take a look at. But there's also this big issue of governance. Once you get above a certain size, you have to make your allegiance to one political party or another. But just to qualify this, some small firms are growing. And this, again, is interesting. They tend to be in traded products. They almost universally are not in services. And that's quite interesting as a finding. So some manufacturers are growing from micro to large. But services don't grow in the economy. And that's because the majority of those are sort of mom-and-pop stores. The last question was on confidentiality and the availability of the data. Yes, it's an issue, particularly in the middle-income countries, I think, and in the more advanced economies. But then there are ways around it, as Eric has been mentioning, getting particular codes. I think Mark, who's sitting here, might want to comment on what he's been doing with coding in Turkey. But so far, in the low-income countries that I've been to, and I've only really had this dialogue recently with 4, every time I've asked and shown what we'll do with the data and said, look, we're going to keep this data to ourselves for now. We're not going to put out anything that will jeopardize a particular business. I've had the discussion in Uganda, Moldova, Kenya, and Sierra Leone, and in all of those countries, we've been promised the data. In 3 of them, we already have it, and in the 4th, it's coming now. So I think if we can show that we're, A, going to provide something useful in terms of advice, and B, build capacity to do policy analysis in the countries, then the tool, I think, can help unlock the data. If the tool helps unlock the data, we can, maintaining confidentiality, perhaps get better at this cross-country comparisons and applying theoretically derived techniques to understand policy. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I am cognizant that we are running over. We did start late with our technical issue. And again, thank you, Eric, for your patience. And I also want to just sort of, thank all the panelists first and everyone in the audience for being here. I know there are more questions and people have other things they'd like to contribute. There is actually a lunch that's just starting now in the atrium as part of the jobs day. So you're certainly invited to attend, except for Eric. Sorry, Eric, no free lunch. It's dinner time.
Dinner time anyway.
Yes, indeed. But do invite you to come down in the atrium. But again, thank you very much for everybody for participating. Really appreciate that. Thank you.
Goodbye.